Dance with Devils follows the life of a teenage girl who goes to a ridiculously rich high school. She is a good student who follows all the rules. Her mother requires that she wears a pendant to keep her safe. It is obvious that this pendant has magical protective powers pretty quickly. In episode 1, she is summoned to the student council office to speak with the student council president, who all the girls refer to as the Great Rem. Oh, and Rem reeks of a supernatural manipulator from scene 1. Obvious magical effects going on, attempts at a seducing kiss, which she rejects. If he doesn't end up being some sort of vampire or incubus by the end of the show, I'll be surprised. Dance with Devils is tagged as a supernatural harem romance with demons. So at least 3 of those words worry me. Harem plus romance typically adds to ecchi. The equation gets even more pervy when you add the multiplier demon. Hell, we even have supernatural in there too, so the entire equation might as well be cubed at that point. Did I mention it's rated R? So imagine my shock when, not only is there not a giant-titted monster moaning seductively, licking random things and using barely veiled innuendo, but the harem is actually a reverse harem. So far there have been no panty shots, cleavage, strangely skin-revealing outfits, or clothes being damaged in a fight. No obligatory shower scenes, and no hints of a fanservice episode yet either. Oh, and there's singing. Dance with Devils is really playing up a musical theme. All of the episode names so far have dance terminology, and all the magic that has been used so far comes with a musical number. Hell, the main character sings on her way to school like some Disney princess. I honestly don't try to steer people towards dub or sub normally, and I'll take a moment to note that the dub is actually fairly solid. I would suggest watching the anime subbed, as the voice actors in the Japanese version are the same people that sing the songs during spellcasting, while the dub just plays the Japanese singing. The voice talent in the English version is paired fairly well to the Japanese voice actors, but the differences in the tone as well as the sudden shift in language pulled me out of the experience, while the subbed version worked so much better at maintaining the flow. Okay, let's pull this all back in for a minute. There are 3 distinct factions that I've been able to identify so far, all of which have the same goal of finding a, quote, forbidden grimoire, end quote. As I have identified so far, there's the Student Council, with obvious magical powers, the Devil Worshippers, who are a cookie-cutter vampire, dark clothes, only out when the sun's not, killing, and somehow able to have everything they damaged be magically repaired with a supernatural speed, and an Exorcist group, consisting of the brother and mother of the main character. Now, episode 1's title speaks of a quadrille, which is a dance involving 4 couples and containing 5 figures, which means we have at least one more group that I am not taking into account or has not been introduced. While this is posed as a 3-way power struggle in the most obvious ways, it smells of a plot wrapping and not a true threat. It is obvious that the real focus here is on the main female in the scenario, and her family trying to keep her away from the Student Council faction. I am betting that the main character is, in of herself, the grimoire, or at least housing it, something to that effect. The Devil Worshippers are a fairly secondary threat, and are being treated as more of an annoyance than a real problem. The animation takes some obvious shortcuts for exposition, but I won't complain about that, as I've seen some animes waste a lot of time trying to make every scene dynamic and visually interesting at the expense of focusing on the actual plot. Besides, someone talking on the phone is fairly static, so it would seem weird to have an excessive amount of motion. This anime was released in 2015, so I need to comment on the fact that the art seems more dated than that. It could be that the production had started far earlier, and it simply wasn't viable to update the visuals significantly, but the art remains more of something from the early 2000s. That isn't necessarily a bad thing, just worth noting. Unlike some of the animes I've reviewed recently, I'm actually looking forward to finishing this one. I like the main character, and the way she seems to react like a strong woman would. Her mother's disappearance has an obvious effect on her, and she acts with a reasonable amount of self-preservation and independent thought, as opposed to blindly following whatever is ordered of her. Similarly, she takes actions that make sense for a teenager to take, as opposed to the "someone else save me" that so many other heroines resort to. I think the reason that I enjoy this anime is that it reminds me a bit of Ouran High School Host Club, but with a darker and more serious story. Plus, magic and singing.